On what now? Negotiations for a firmer peace deal heighten. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance arrives in Israel as part of the government's efforts to strengthen Gaza's shaky peace process. In Zimbabwe, ruling ZANU-PF party agrees on constitutional amendment for the elongation of the tenure of President Emmerson Mnangagwa to 2030. We're live with this analysis, and here is what now. I am Precious Amayo. Well, let's start off in the Middle East, where as part of the Trump's administration's efforts to strengthen the Gaza ceasefire agreement, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has arrived in Israel for talks. He's expected to push for the start of negotiations on long-term thorny issues for a permanent end to Israel's war with Hamas. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the two special U.S. envoys who helped negotiate the deal, held talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday. Their visit followed a flare-up of violence on Sunday that threatened to derail the 12-day-old truce. Israel says an attack by Hamas killed 2 of its soldiers, triggering Israeli airstrikes, which killed dozens of Palestinians. U.S. President Donald Trump insists that the ceasefire is on track, but wants that it will be eradicated if Hamas violates the agreement. Now, for more on the path to peace in the Middle East, global affairs analyst Gbenga Onifade joins me from the United Kingdom. Good to have you join us, Gbenga.
Hi, good afternoon.
So it will seem like the U.S. is eager for the ceasefire to hold, but do you sense concern and worry from the U.S. on the possibility of implementing this agreement?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, we do have the key the key advisor, Jared Kushner, has been sent to the strip, Israel, to Israel. And of course, I think we do have Witkoff as well, which has been sent on. So, and I think as at a few hours ago, we do have J.D. Vance. So yes, there is a possibility that I think at both ends, they believe that the peace is being threatened. So yes, I think if you going by what we've been seeing the past few days, there has been a strike, by Israel, with I think about 45 people killed, a few hundreds injured again, with both parties blaming each other. And yes, President Trump is insistent with all the on all the hard work and being, is at the risk of all the hard work being undone. So yes, there is a possibility. We do have U.S. negotiators trying to keep the peace process on track. We do have, it's quite difficult to say one is not guilty right now, really. But right now, I think what we do have is the peace process, which I think more details being revealed. It's definitely been unwound, and it's been threatened heavily.
And there are more, I think about 15 more bodies of hostages yet to be returned to Israel by Hamas. And then we also see that violation of the ceasefire by both parties, even though the U.S. president has said Hamas wasn't involved in the attack, or in the attack rather on Israeli soldiers that killed 2 of them. But do you think that for some reason there is a hurry to implement the next phase or move on to the next phase while the very first phase of this agreement seems a bit shaky?
Absolutely. I mean, time is very short to implement this. This is something which President Trump himself said it's been on for 3,000 years, and it feels like it's got a victory. It's very early to call a victory over these things. Even I personally feel, I feel overjoyed that we are able to get to one phase. Yes, we do understand that aids are now coming in. People are the security is now a lot more relaxed compared to before. But yes, you are right. I think we are, we've been too much in a hurry jumping onto the next phase because death is still going on. There's still a little bit of chaos. Yes, there's been a lot more freedom, but unfortunately, if we're talking about the shadows of the 7th of October of 2 years ago, it's still right there staring at us. And it's very early to say it's now we can move on to the next phase. But which is why, we do have a whole figure in J.D. Vance, which is landing right there now. It's just as a symbol, a sign to say, look, we want this enforced and we will neglect or abandon a few things here just to be able to make sure this can be enforced. Yes, what they're not going to get is you're not going to get boots on ground, but you will get bold statements. And of course, I mean, Netanyahu, he understands the backing of the president, which he's got. He does not want to lose that. There's been heavy key figures, heavy states, which have been calling for the Palestinian state and the backing. So there's still a lot more work to be done, but I think it's a bit too early to think we can move on to the next phase, unfortunately. Right now, it's all about monitoring and enforcing, but how that's going to be done, that's a different thing entirely.
And there is a concern also that the military object, or the objectives rather, which is the military objectives of Netanyahu, who is backed by the far-right coalition that brought him to power, seems to be contradictory to that of the international community. Netanyahu wants to decimate Hamas completely and demilitarize Gaza, but international community, which is also wants, a ceasefire and political settlement in that region. I mean, is there a balance between both?
Very difficult to implement a balance. I mean, what does Hamas have? Hamas actually, they have the key hostages, dead or alive. That was their weapon. Israel has tried all years to try and get these hostages. They used all their power. They couldn't really do that. Now we were able to get or to reach a negotiation. I think Hamas has actually lost literally all leverage right now. I think in terms of Israel, they have achieved whatever they can or they want to achieve. Yes, I don't think, even though it feels like Hamas has actually given up all the weapon, well, they've given up all the leverage. I'm sure Israel hasn't been able to get all the tunnels yet. Decimating them, it's something difficult because now we are talking about, raising a little more Hamas, because again, we've got so many children who saw that witness their parents killed. We do see adults of fighting age who saw their children killed. So hatred is still right there in breeding it. Will they forgive? Probably yes. Will they forget? It's very difficult. So, and then again, what is exactly, President, Prime Minister Netanyahu's aim objective? I mean, so it got political. Some thought it's probably a ploy to keeping, a lot more there, keeping law longer. I mean, it's been the longest serving right now. Has it been keeping Israel a lot more secure? That's up to Israelis to say. But really difficult in terms of what his objectives are right now. He wants to see it to the end. What is the end? He wants to decimate Hamas? He's been saying that completely. Can he really do that? I think that's really difficult. You can't kill what you cannot see. So very hard on both sides, with Hamas having given up everything they can. I'm sure they still got a few other plans up their sleeve if things get heightened.
And
otherwise, I mean, we saw 2 Israeli soldiers killed. Otherwise, they wouldn't be killed.
And that far-right coalition, which has Itamar Ben-Gvir as its face, who is also one of his cabinet ministers, seem to want him to go on with the demilitarization of Gaza and decimating Hamas, and they are putting that pressure on him. He needs them to stay in power. He has corruption allegations against him, and if he leaves power today, he's going to face court summons. But the U.S. also needs him, and he needs the support of the U.S. as well in this fight. But the U.S. is saying, look, go on to the next phase. I'm wondering which of the pressure you think would likely be louder.
Big conversation right there. I mean, what people are saying, I mean, it used to be, let's see how fast this circus can go, but this is no longer a circus. Now it's all about, let's see how far the United Kingdom, United States will defend Israel. We know the United Nations itself, there's only little they can do with 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 Prime Minister Netanyahu. There's only little they can do, with his saying. But I think 4 years might seem like a long time. President Trump's still got some time to go. He wants key achievements here. There's only so much President Netanyahu can do if this gets withdrawn. I mean, while President Trump himself was an incumbent, he did say, if you withdraw the funds, the war will dry up. If you withdraw all these things, I think Israel, the war will dry up. Yes, it does face, there are corruption allegations. There is, I think it still has, I think there's a few ceasefire pressure, and I think there's an ICJ clarification in 2024, which said Israel have illegally occupied territories and they have to withdraw, talking about the Golan Heights all the way to parts of Lebanon. Israel and supporters of illegal occupation, and they are obligated to pay repatriation, etc. These are the things that are always going to keep hanging on. But as long as he's got supporters, yes, he can go ahead. But what I believe, or what I think the plan could be, will be to ensure, okay, we can, all these things can come out provided you're able to stop the war. And I believe, yes, no, he's got objectives, but I don't think he will be able to see it through without the support. And whatever President Trump wants, I think most of the time he gets, really. So yes, he can go as far as you want, but if the powers that be or the other key figures who are giving you the funding, if they pull it out any minute, if he doesn't get the approval, I don't think he can do that, unfortunately.
And I have about 30 seconds left, and I'm wondering what you think, or where you think this leaves the guarantor nations who made a commitment to the implementation of this peace deal.
Well, I think guarantor nations, they've got an objective. Sorry, they do have what I call a duty of care. And they are, they're all fighting pressure on both sides, with UK having protest upon protest, President Trump having protest upon protest. All they can do is got to how far they can keep it. And right now, it shouldn't actually get any more worse than it is.
Right, we're following developments there. Vice President J.D. Vance has arrived Israel. We'll see how much pressure he can put on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for talking to us, Global Affairs Analyst Benga Onifadi.
Thanks for having me.
Right, you're watching What Now? We'll take a break. When we return, we'll turn our attention to Africa. Stay with us.